I wish I could tell you I found it on purpose. I didn't. At 2:17 in the morning, I was staring at a black web page that contained my full name, my home address, and the exact model of the laptop sitting in front of me. That should have been terrifying enough. It wasn't. Beneath my information was a sentence that made my stomach drop. You are reading this from your bedroom. I looked around. My bedroom was exactly as it always was. Dark curtains, an unmade bed, a glass of water beside my keyboard. Nothing moved. Nothing looked wrong. Then I noticed the timestamp. 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 43 seconds. I checked the clock on my phone. 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 43 seconds. For a few seconds, I just sat there, trying to convince myself there was an explanation. Someone had tracked me. Someone was watching my camera. Maybe this was an elaborate scam. But there were other things on that page. Things I still can't explain. Things I probably shouldn't have read. And then the website asked me a question. By the time I found the site, nothing about that night felt unusual. It was a little after 2, and I was sitting at my desk with a half-empty mug of coffee beside me. The room was warm, the fan hummed softly, and my monitor painted everything in front of me with that cold blue light that makes every room feel lonelier than it actually is. I had been browsing Reddit, reading obscure horror posts, and saving ideas for stories. I spent enough time around strange corners of the internet to know the basic rules. Don't click suspicious files. Don't reuse passwords. Don't give strangers personal information. And, above all, don't assume anonymity means safety. The most dangerous thing I'd done that night was microwave coffee twice. Then I saw a post in a small online community I sometimes visited. The title was simple: "Don't search for your name." Naturally, I did. At first, the results looked normal. Old accounts, forgotten profiles, random mentions. Then one link appeared with no title, no description, and a string of characters that meant nothing to me. I clicked it anyway. The page loaded slowly, and for the first few seconds, I almost laughed. It looked like an abandoned website. Then the homepage displayed a single question. Who are you? I already knew. The link opened into a chain of directories that looked almost disappointingly ordinary. Anonymous usernames, encrypted files, dead forums, threads with titles like "Anyone else seeing this?" and "Do not download the last file." Nothing supernatural. Just the usual internet garbage people convince themselves is important at 3 in the morning. Then I noticed something strange. There was no search bar, no menu, no categories, no way to browse the site except through links scattered across the page. And in the center of the black screen was one sentence. Who are you? I figured it was some edgy dark web gimmick. So I typed a fake username. Access denied. I tried another. Access denied. Then, mostly because I wanted to prove the site was just checking usernames against some database, I typed my real first name. The page loaded instantly. I stared at the screen. Then I grabbed my phone and messaged a friend who had introduced me to these kinds of communities. "Dude, have you ever seen this site?" A minute passed. Then his reply appeared. "What site?" I sent him the link. 3 dots appeared beneath his name. They vanished. I waited. Nothing. I typed, "You there?" No response. On my monitor, the page suddenly refreshed by itself. My fake username disappeared. My first name disappeared. In their place was my full legal name. Underneath it were 4 locked sections. Personal. Observed. Predictions. Do not access. I hadn't entered my last name anywhere. I hadn't given the site my address. And I definitely hadn't told it what I was doing. Then the first locked section began loading. Personal. 1 new entry. The first entry was a list of things I could explain. An old username I had abandoned years ago. A forgotten email address. The name of the school I attended. Even an ancient social media account I had deleted before I understood how permanent the internet could be. It was creepy, but not impossible. Then I saw a photograph. It was me at 19, sitting on the floor of my old apartment, holding a birthday cake. I remembered that picture. I had deleted it years ago after losing access to the account where it was stored. I leaned closer. The site had somehow recovered it. That was when I called my friend. Tell me I'm being stupid. He laughed nervously. You're on the dark web at 2 in the morning. You're definitely being stupid. I'm serious. So am I. While he was talking, another line appeared on the screen. You are alone in your apartment. I stopped breathing. My friend heard the silence. What? Nothing. The next line appeared. You have not checked the window. I looked toward the curtains. They were still. The room was still. Everything was completely normal. I looked back at the screen. You're looking at the window. I wasn't. At least, I hadn't been. Slowly, against every instinct I had, I turned toward it. Nothing. Just black glass reflecting my room. Then the website changed. Now you are. My friend was still talking through the phone. I barely heard him. Then another notification appeared. A message from an unknown account. Don't tell him about the basement. I stared at those words until they stopped looking like English. I don't have a basement. I've never had a basement. I was about to ask my friend if he had sent the message when something made a heavy sound downstairs. Not a creak. Not the pipes. A single, deliberate thud. My friend stopped talking. Then he whispered, "What was that?" I didn't answer my friend. I couldn't. Instead, I closed the message window and started clicking through the site, looking for anything that could explain what I'd just heard. That's when I found a page hidden beneath the locked sections. Rules for users. There were 5 rules visible. 1. Do not search for someone else's name. 2. Do not refresh the page after midnight. 3. Never type, "Who made this?" 4. If the site displays something that hasn't happened yet, do not prevent it. 5. If your name appears in red, close the browser immediately. I actually laughed. It was nervous laughter, the kind that escapes when your brain can't decide whether you're afraid or embarrassed. Someone had built this whole thing to scare people. That was my explanation. A damn good one, too. Then I noticed the number beside the rules. 5/47. There were 47 rules. 42 of them were locked. I hovered over the next one, but the screen went black for half a second. When it returned, my name was still at the top. Only now, the letters weren't white. They were red. Every instinct I had told me to close the laptop. So I did. I slammed the lid shut and stepped away from the desk. The screen stayed on. Not dimmed. Not sleeping. The black surface simply continued glowing through the tiny gap between the lid and keyboard. Then something typed itself onto the screen. I could hear the keys moving, one by one, slowly, like someone was sitting on the other side. The message appeared. Rule 5 has been broken. That's when I realized the site wasn't giving me information anymore. It was giving me instructions. And judging by the next line, someone had already broken them. I reopened the laptop because, apparently, fear makes people stupid. Buried beneath the rules was an archive of user posts. Most were corrupted, but one profile was intact. User, March_17. The earliest posts were almost casual. He'd found the site through a private forum and thought it was an elaborate data harvesting scam. Then his posts changed. He started talking about missing files, messages appearing on his computer, information about his apartment that nobody should have known. 3 weeks later, he wrote, "It doesn't predict what happens. It decides what happens." I read that sentence twice. Then I found his photograph. It showed a young man sitting at a desk, staring nervously into a camera. I almost closed the page, because behind him was my room. Same curtains, same desk, same crooked lamp. Even the scratch on the wall beside my monitor was there. My hands went cold. There was no way. I checked the image details. Nothing. No date. No location. No metadata. Just one file name. March_17_final.jpg. I'd seen stories like this before. Everyone in these communities had. The cursed files, impossible websites, disappearing accounts. Usually, there was always a rational explanation hiding underneath. This didn't have one. And suddenly, I remembered something people often said about these cases. There was never just one copy. There were mirrors, backups, private communities, people documenting everything. I scrolled to the bottom of March_17's archive. One final message remained. It had no timestamp, no username, just a single sentence. If you're reading this, IT already knows you're here. The locked section opened when I touched it. There was no password, no warning, just a folder with my name on it. Inside were dozens of files. My stomach tightened as I opened the first one. It wasn't about my childhood, or my family, or anything that could have been scraped from the internet. It was about tomorrow. The first entry said I would receive a phone call. The second said I would drop a glass. The third said someone would knock on my door. I stared at the screen, trying to find some trick behind it. Then I remembered the phone call. My friend had called me earlier. The glass beside my laptop had already fallen. And that noise downstairs? I hadn't imagined it. The site wasn't predicting things. It was documenting things before they happened. Then I noticed something worse. Several entries described things I had done since opening the website. My messages, my reactions, even the moment I looked toward the window. Every detail was there. I felt sick. If you're listening to this because you think it's just another creepypasta, that's fine. I would have thought the same thing. Then I opened the final file. There was only one line. 217. Subject tells audience about the website. I checked the clock. 2:16. For the first time that night, I understood what the site wanted. It didn't need to watch me. It already knew what I would do. And somehow, it knew you would hear this story too. I waited for the minute to change. 2:17. Nothing happened. I almost laughed. Then, exactly 1 minute later, I heard 3 knocks. I ran. Not because I knew where I was going, but because staying felt worse. I ripped the Wi-Fi cable from the router. The laptop screen stayed lit. I shut the laptop. The screen remained visible through the closed lid. I pulled the battery. The page stayed there. So I deleted everything. Files, browser history, the folder with my name. Then I smashed the laptop against the floor. Plastic cracked. The screen shattered. For 3 seconds, there was silence. Then my phone vibrated. The website was open on it. I threw the phone onto my bed. My friend's phone rang. He answered. What's happening? I don't know. Then he went quiet. It's on my screen. What? The website. I could hear his breathing. I left the apartment. I walked to the nearest 24-hour shop, found a public computer, and sat down. I didn't search for anything. I didn't touch the keyboard. The homepage appeared by itself. Who are you? I stared at it. Then my phone buzzed again. My friend had sent one message. You need to stop looking at it. I typed back. I tried. His response came immediately. No. You tried closing it. That sentence stayed with me as I stood there beneath the fluorescent lights, surrounded by shelves of ordinary things. The website wasn't inside my laptop. It wasn't inside my phone. It was waiting wherever I looked. I opened the final file again. There was one instruction beneath the timestamp. To end your record, complete the request. I stared at those words. Then another line appeared, and I finally understood what I had to do. The request wasn't complicated. It wanted me to add a record. Mine. I thought that was the trick. The entire website had been designed to make people investigate until they became part of it. I opened the archive again. There were thousands of names. Some had dates from last year. Some were decades old. Some didn't have dates at all. Every person had started the same way I had. Curious, skeptical, certain they could close the page whenever they wanted. Then I saw the oldest entry. There was no name, only a question mark. I don't know who created the site. I don't know how old it really is, or how it knows things that haven't happened yet. I don't know what happens to people whose records suddenly stop updating. And I definitely don't know how many people are being watched right now. But I understood one thing. The site wasn't collecting victims. It was collecting authors. The screen changed. New record created. A second line appeared beneath it. Author, my name. That was when I realized I wasn't a victim anymore. I was the newest archivist. And if you've noticed connections to other stories, old posts, or cases like this, maybe they're not coincidences. Maybe the answers are already buried somewhere. Maybe someone reading this has already found them. Don't search your name. I'm serious. Whatever you do, don't open that site and type it in. Because when I checked the page one last time, my name wasn't there anymore. There was only a new record. User found you. I stared at those words until the screen went black. So if you're listening to this right now, maybe you should stop. And definitely don't search your name.